Hello to our lovely followers and patrons. I hope your week is going well so far, and I hope you are ready for today's video about homeostasis and the control systems in our bodies. So what is homeostasis? It basically means that your system is controlled in terms of temperature, fluid regulation, chemical balances, etc. So homeostasis means that your internal physical and chemical conditions are under control and balanced. In a previous video, we talked about negative and positive feedback. These are the two concepts that are most important when it comes to homeostasis. Negative feedback means that any imbalances and your control systems kick in to fix them. So if you start running out of one of your hormones, for example, your body detects that and induces that hormone to be produced to the right levels again. If your temperature drops, it induces your body to raise that temperature by making you shiver, by inducing vasoconstriction so there are no heat losses through your blood vessels, etc. So negative feedback promotes stability and balance. Positive feedback, on the other hand, is the opposite. It induces chaos, so to say. So it is almost like the snowball effect, where something becomes deregulated and then this feedback makes it even more and more deregulated. You might be thinking, why would we want that? It doesn't sound good. But in some cases, we do. So during childbirth, for example, you need the hormone oxytocin in order to get contractions and kick the baby out. So with every contraction you produce more and more oxytocin until the baby is born. That is a snowball effect, where with each contraction more hormone is produced. It is a hormonal imbalance which is vital for childbirth to occur. So positive feedback equals instability and imbalance, which would be terrible for most situations, but nonetheless it is still vital in a few situations, such as childbirth. We talked about how homeostasis is responsible for controlling our temperature. So we're going to dive into this in a bit more detail. Let's see what happens when someone has hypothermia. Hypothermia is a condition in which your body temperature drops quite a lot due to your external environment. If you decide to climb Mount Everest, this is an important concept for you to know. So your normal body temperature is between 36 and 37 degrees Celsius. When your temperature drops below 35, then that is considered hypothermia. You might think that that is not that low of a temperature, but the problem is that when your temperature is not in the ideal range of 36 to 37, then your organs start to struggle and there might be some repercussions. When someone has hypothermia, that means that they are losing more heat than they are able to generate. So even though your temperature might only be a few degrees below the normal range, the fact that your body is no longer able to produce the heat to bring the temperature back to normal means that your thermoregulation systems are unable to do their job, which is not good. Additionally, when you are hypothermic, your heart, nervous system, and other organs begin to struggle and might not perform their jobs as well and as efficiently. So let's talk about thermoregulation. As you can deduce from the name, thermo is temperature and regulation is, well, regulation. So the control of your body temperature. Like we discussed in our previous videos, you have sensors all over your body that tell your brain what is going on. So when your temperature starts dropping, those sensors tell the brain that something is wrong. They specifically send that information to a part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain in charge of controlling some bodily functions. So then, your hypothalamus sends signals back to your organs and to other systems in your body, so they can respond to this temperature drop. A few things happen as a result to bring your temperature back up. Vasoconstriction, so your superficial blood vessels become narrower and tighter to avoid losing heat from them, and to retain the heat in the center of your body, where your organs are. Thermogenesis, which means that your muscles, organs, and brain start producing heat in different ways, so your muscles start shivering, for example. And hormonal thermogenesis, so you produce and release hormones that increase your metabolism, therefore you produce more heat. As you can imagine, when your body is in this distressing and dangerous situation, the feedback that you get is positive. And why is that? Well, because you need to create an imbalance where more and more heat is generated by your body to bring your body temperature back up. If your temperature then goes back to normal, your sensors will detect that and stop the positive feedback as it is no longer required. Now let's see another example of homeostasis. Let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes occurs because your blood glucose levels become deregulated and start becoming too high. This happens in type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is a different situation that we will not go into today. But there is an underlying cause for this. We have talked about insulin before. Insulin is a hormone that regulates your blood glucose levels by moving glucose into and out of cells, whenever required. So if your body for some reason stops producing insulin, or produces it in small amounts, then your blood glucose levels become deregulated, and that can give rise to type 2 diabetes. When this happens, your body is no longer able to break down glucose to be used up by cells. So people who suffer from diabetes need to inject insulin for the rest of their lives, and need to adjust their lifestyle and their eating habits. So insulin transports glucose into and out of cells where it can be broken down into glycogen to be stored. There is another hormone called glucagon which has the opposite function of insulin. It converts glycogen back into glucose when the body needs it. This hormone also stimulates the production of more glucose. So these two hormones have opposing functions, and they are meant to complement each other according to the needs of your body. When someone has diabetes, this means that their glucagon works normally, so they keep producing glucose and converting the stored glycogen into glucose. But then they can't counteract that with insulin, as they're either not producing enough insulin, or they have a resistance to it. So it's like a positive feedback that occurs at this point, because you don't have the two sides of the scale balancing each other out. Let's take a look at a diagram that should explain it a bit better. So as you can see, it is like a balance. When the balance is tipping more one way, some mechanisms kick in, and if it tips the other way, other mechanisms kick in. So let's start with the right-hand side of the diagram. If your blood glucose levels drop, you release glucagon, which increases production of glucose and the conversion of glycogen into glucose. This then brings glucose levels back up, making the balance even. On the left-hand side, you have the opposite. If your blood glucose levels become high, then you release insulin, which then stores glucose as glycogen and increases the uptake of glucose by the cells, so that glucose is either used up or stored. That way, the blood glucose levels go back down and the balance is even again. For type 2 diabetes patients, this disease means that they have to change their lives drastically. They need to limit their intake of sugar, fat, and salt. They can't skip meals, a routine needs to be maintained, and it is important to do a lot of physical exercise as that helps lower blood sugar levels. Losing weight might also be needed in some cases. That's the end of our video today. Please visit our Patreon to check out our exclusive content like quizzes, mind maps, and more. Bye bye!